Oh, I should unmute myself. That might be
Morning.
helpful.
Seems like things are off to a good start.
Yeah, I think so. It's always neat to see what people bring to the table. It sounds like we have a whole group of interesting people, especially from the cohort that Joe has brought in and that you guys have been working with. So one of the people in the last session was from one of the schools that, let's see.
Minnesota or Indiana school?
Minnesota. Was from, yeah, one of the schools there that David Sobel had mentioned in his presentation and such, so highlighted.
Oh, that I did see that comment and I wasn't sure who that was or what school they were talking about.
Annie, I had to look her up. I'm like, who is this? You know? Annie Thoraldson. So Prior Lake Savage area schools.
Sure. Cool.
Yeah. And I'm just pulling up a couple of resources so that I know, just wanted to share a couple of things that we've got. Okay. Okay. Okay, and I've got our
frog chirping in your background.
Say again?
You have tropical frogs chirping in your background?
Can you hear them? Yeah. They're invasive species. They're these coqui frogs. And people say they're really annoying. They are pretty loud. You can hear them. My husband does a great interpretation of them. But what was I've gotten used to them. I really actually like listening to them all the time. And my husband went home for a week and he came back and he's like, where are the frogs? You know, I'm liking the frogs. So yeah, there's not air conditioning and such most places here, you know, and so we sleep with the windows open and stuff, and it's still like 5 in the morning. So.
Oh, right. I keep forgetting that I mean, I know that you're off, but I have like no clue of how far off you are. So you're up early.
Yeah, it's interesting to watch, like the frogs come out and it's been getting dark here about 6 o'clock. And then, and it's not light, it's still like, oh, you can't see it because I've got the background. It's still dark outside and gets light around 6:30 maybe. And so the frogs are on that whole time. So.
There you go.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and let people in.
Okay. And then you'll start off with the welcome, and then I'm explaining the breakout rooms, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah. Right now we only have 5 people, so we may just keep it all together, depending on what we've got and such. But yeah.
Sounds good.
We'll see how it goes. So. Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome. I see Annie and Heather and Ellie so far. So glad to have you all and excited to be working with you today. And hopefully we'll have some more people. And if not, we will enjoy our conversations with you all. So. And we'll just wait a couple minutes to get started. If you would like to, I think that it's been helpful to start understanding who is who just by sharing who you are, like in the chat a little bit, just to give a little bit of information about who you are and where you're coming from. And that's been helping me, I know, like associate who is who and where they belong kind of thing. Since we don't have that visual cue of seeing people in person, just having that a little bit information about people in the chat has been helpful for me. So. Okay, I share a little bit about myself. You guys have been doing a lot of work, Annie. It's neat to see what's going on, and I'm curious what those next steps are going to be with finding a new director and such. So, and I go in and use Annie's space a lot for some of the programming that I do with Tinkergarten and some programs that are free to the public and such there as well. And I love, love, love their space. They've got water and trees and woods and prairie and a river and all those kinds of things. And so there's just a lot of different places where we can have our outdoor classroom wherever we choose, whatever would work best for what we're doing. So yeah, I like those spaces. And it's, you know, it's right behind industrial Elkhart. You know, that's one thing that I like about it. You know, there are these all this, you know, city right outside of this space is kind of reclaimed dump, I believe. And so they've got some displays on what that process was like and how that was converted. But it's nice to have some of those neat little nature spots right in town and such. So we will go ahead and get started and want to just welcome you all. I need to pull up my notes, sorry. Okay, so welcome to the conference, EEAI Vision 2020 virtual conference. And this is part of the nature-based early childhood environmental education track. And it's about the statewide statewide kind of movement that we're kind of looking at being a part of, I guess. Hope you're in the right place. And I am recording, it looks like. I don't remember pressing it, but it looks like it's recording. So I'm glad to see that.
You have a nice little snapshot of our little welcome introduction.
I know. We did want to thank our sponsors, NbECE and Mary Lee Environmental Center of Goshen College, which Marcos is part of, and then also NAAE have been sponsors, as well as some private sponsors that we appreciate with this as well, which is allowing some of that funding for additional follow-up sessions with that as well. So let's see. Okay. So we'll kind of do some of this other stuff. Marcos and I are just here to kind of facilitate this conversation. And we are really looking forward to hearing from you all. So I hope that this will be a session where you feel comfortable taking your microphones off during parts of it and sharing with us and just kind of helping us seeing how we can do this a little bit more. Just to introduce ourselves a little bit, we've put a little bit of information in the chat. I do teach some class sometimes during the summer on program eval for the Mary Lee, for their graduate students. They've got a great program there, and it's neat to see how, since they have a nature preschool on site that they collaborate with, and then also have helped many schools in the area do these kinder forest programs, it's neat to see how that has influenced what the graduate students have been studying and learning about with that. So that's really neat to see that. Marcos is the director of the environmental education for the whole organization there. So oversees like the public programming and these initiatives with schools and field trips and all of those kinds of things. And has really done a lot of good work with kind of helping understand kinder forests and implement them in the local area in northern Indiana there. And so it's neat to see that spreading and more schools incorporating that as part of those efforts that they've done to build those relationships and such. And they've done a good approach of not taking it on like we're in charge of this, but giving schools the tools and supporting them, but it's their project. And they're there to help in putting it back on the schools so that they've got ownership of those programs and such too, I would say.
Thanks for those kind words, Carla. And I got to make sure that you give yourself a little bit of an introduction too, so that folks kind of have an idea of who the two facilitators are.
Oh yes, I was getting there. That was my next one. Good. And I teach college classes online, and then with that, I do a fair amount of research with I can do it on whatever I want to, and I like nature play. And so I look at loose parts and tree climbing and outdoor classrooms and different topics of that. And so as an extension of that and other things, I do professional development for early childhood educators, presentations at conferences and things, and then also go into some preschools and do nature program with those. I also lead kindergarten classes and do just non-formal education locally, just because I love it and it's fun and I want to see people getting outside. And if I can facilitate a play experience to make that happen, I will do it. I've got a podcast called Loose Parts Nature Play that has a lot of information about different topics, such as in the last session we were talking about ice and fire and things like that. So I can talk about fire and ice as loose parts for a long time, and do try to keep them concise as well and share lots of resources and such with them. So let's see. I'm going to go ahead and turn the time over to Marcos just to help us introduce ourselves and who's here and what we bring to the table. So.
Yeah, so welcome all. Just to kind of help make sure that we're able to hit multiple modalities depending on who is able to see different elements of our session. If you wouldn't mind just giving a quick introduction in the chat function to say kind of who you are or your title, maybe where you're coming from, that would be helpful. We're also going to do some spoken introductions as well. So we really want to get to know who you are, but I know for me sometimes I listen and all of a sudden it's just in one ear and out the other. So being able to reference back is very helpful. So, so what is this session and kind of what is it about? Well, one of the things that Carla and I were talking about is that it would be really helpful to not only have sessions as she has worked so hard with others to provide in this conference that are really about kind of the theory or, here's like a lesson plan schema or, some of the information about risky play, et cetera. But that also we were hoping to make a space where it can be a little bit more customized or fine-tuned based off of what the people in the room really need. And so from that perspective, what we have for you today is not so much that we have this whole series of slides that we're going to be presenting on to fill your cup, so to speak, but instead we're hoping that we've crafted an agenda where it can be a little bit more responsive and interactive, so that as you're saying, hey, this is the thing I'd really need, or this is the thing I really need, then we can kind of get a pulse from the group to figure out what it is that we have to answer those needs, what resources we already are aware of, and what we might find that we need to work on together. So to help get this into a place where you're getting what you want out of it, we want to be thinking of things in kind of two main tracks. So track one, basically like, what is it that you need to start doing more or deeper or try something else new in this kind of area of nature-based early childhood education or early childhood environmental education, kind of whichever term you want to use. Like, what do you need for tomorrow or for next week? Like, what are the very concrete hands-on things that would help you to deepen, start, etc.? That might be at like the teacher level, or if you're an administrator, it might be more at the program level. So you can answer that kind of either way that you'd like, but think about the concrete to start with. The second piece is this broader question of how might we advance, or let me put it this way, what does our state need to support parents, educators, administrators that are interested in nature-based early childhood education? So on the one hand, we're trying to think of like, what does your program need? How can you benefit directly? And then we also want to take just a step back to think about what larger conversations, structures, meetings, I mean, I don't know what those resources might be, would help us as maybe a field or as a group of practitioners that are trying something new out. So the way we're going to do that is, I think based off of our numbers, Carla, should we just all stay in the same room for this?
I think so.
Cool. So we'll just kind of do a round robin where everyone has a chance to share. And I'll give some facilitation instructions on that here just briefly. And we're going to be focusing on just a quick introduction, and then we'll focus on those two questions to start with. And then I think we might be able to open it up from there to kind of identify what we're hearing from each other. Okay, And yes, Teresa, we'll put those questions in the chat so that you can see those. Thank you. You're a step ahead of us. So to start off with, what we'd like to do is the introductions, and we'll kind of break down each of those questions one by one so that it's not so much to remember all at one time also. So the first thing is we're going to do this in a whip format. And a whip is where we're kind of going around the circle. Everyone has a chance to share. You're also not obligated to share. So if you do want to pass, you sure can. If you're just kind of here to listen, that's fine. But the idea is that you're doing 1, 2, or 3 sentences at the most. And we're not kind of going on this long diatribe. So it's a chance for us to get a pulse from everybody, and it gets kind of voices heard across the whole group. And then it preserves time later for kind of more involved conversation. So just to practice that, if I had asked you, like, what is your favorite season and why? Ellie, you might say, I love fall because of all the colors and the leaves. And Heidi, you might say, well, summer's my favorite because we love going to the beach. And Leslie, you might say winter because I love sledding. But it really is just like 1, 2, or 3 sentences at the most. Okay, so to start off with, we're going to do introductions. So tell us Carla.
If people feel comfortable turning their videos on, it'd be great to see people too. Just as an aside, you don't have to, but it would be great. Sorry,
Yeah,
go ahead.
You. I wasn't sure if that was possible through Whova or not, but we would love to see you. Cool. So for the introductions, what we'll do is who you are, what your title is, what your program is, and one thing that you're experimenting with or excited about in the area of nature-based early childhood education or just getting kids outside. So think general introduction and then something that you're doing with students, and we'll do that in that whip format. And I think what I can do is really quickly put an order of response in so that you know when you're going to be up, and then I'll facilitate that as we go as well. So I'll start, we'll then go to Carla, we'll go to Annie, Ellie, and I'll put this in chat so you know, and I'm basically just going down my list here.
And a couple people don't have mic or camera, so they'll just respond in the chat. That'd be Heidi and Leslie. So.
Okay, yeah, please feel free just to do it just like that. Okay, and so we'll go in this order: Marcos, Carla, Annie, Ellie, Heather, Heidi, Leslie, Michelle, and Teresa. So I'll start off just to model real quick, although you've heard some of me already. My name is Marcos. I work at Mary Lee, and I work most directly with students in our nature preschool. We run that in partnership with the YMCA Cole Family Center YMCA out of Albion, Indiana. So hi, Heather. Thanks for your partnership there. And we've also worked with Kinder Forest students in Northern Indiana in the public school district. All right, Carla, can you go next, modeling again the whip format, please? Mm-hmm.
Carla Gull. I'm based in Goshen, Indiana, but I do a lot online with Loose Parts Play and Loose Parts Nature Play. But work with preschoolers and with their families in classrooms, and then also with educators to help move that needle to outside, and then also in academic research.
Great, thank you. And if you don't have a mic or audio, just remind me when we get there if I've forgotten. So Annie, would you please go next? You look like you're unmuted, but we can't hear you, Annie, so perhaps it's not working.
What about now?
Yes, we got you.
Okay. My name is Annie. I work for the Elkhart Environmental Center. I'm the interim supervisor and the program coordinator right now. So we do programs, field trips, events, all kinds of stuff for a wide range of audiences. So we focus our field trips obviously on K through 12. We do some programs with college students, and then we also try to target families and adults throughout the year too.
Great, thank you, Annie. An excellent example of a whip response. Next, we'll go to Ellie, and then after that to Heather.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can.
Yeah. Okay, my name's Ellie McConaughey. I'm from the UK, but I'm living in Fort Wayne, Indiana. I'm the Director of Early Childhood at Canterbury School in Fort Wayne. The pandemic kind of fast forwarded us into outdoor education. which was something I wanted to do, but it kind of meant that we just started quicker than we would have usually, which was great. Over the summer, I sent a letter to parents asking them for lots of loose parts. I called them recyclables. And my teachers were kind of a little bit, I don't know, puzzled by it. But this week, what I've been really excited about is that we've collected planks and tree stumps and all sorts of things. And one of the teachers showed me a bunch of photos of her children transporting the planks onto the tree stumps and making obstacle courses, and how that play emerged naturally and wouldn't have happened without it. And I think, gosh, I've got one member of staff that has begun to understand where we want to be going.
Great, thank you, Ellie. And hopefully that one member can kind of be infectious to the other, one of the few infections we're really looking for right now. All right, next up, Heather, if you could go, and then Heidi, you can be on deck.
Okay, can you hear me?
We can.
All right, well, I'm Heather Teal, and I am the program coordinator and teacher at our Albion location. And we go outside in our woods that's right here on site at a local school corporation. So we're a private preschool, but we're in a public school. And we go to the woods 4 times a month. So I'm really interested in getting parent engagement. I guess that would be what I would like to get out of this.
Great, thank you, Heather. Next, we'll go to Heidi, and then Leslie, if you can have your chat ready so that you can provide an introduction, I can make sure to read that. Heidi says, I do preschool programming outdoors in Eagle Creek Park with stations where children with their parents can choose their activities and the amount of time they want to stay there. We focus on imaginative play, loose parts, exploration, art, fine motor development, etc., with our nature themes. Thank you, Heidi. Leslie, you can put yours in when you have a chance, and while you're doing so.
She actually has it. I'll go ahead and read it. So
Great.
just a bit. She's the naturalist for LaGrange, Leslie Arnold, naturalist for LaGrange County Parks and Recreation. She does traditional nature programs and a family homeschool forest school at one of the parks this year. So I'm major butterfly nerd and happy to be here, she says.
I like the butterfly nerd note. We should connect. I have worked at a butterfly pavilion before, so I got my reference down pat. Let's see. Michelle, would you go next? And then Teresa, if you could put yours into chat, or we can read what you would have put in earlier if you did.
Hi, I work at Conner Prairie with the animals and part of the ag staff, so the animals in the gardens. We also have like a treetop area and a nature-based preschool there as well. So I'm just gathering ideas for programs.
Great, welcome. Thanks for joining us. And here's Teresa. DNR at Salamone Lake in Andrews, Indiana, run a monthly forest preschool program for kids with their parent, caregiver, and often siblings. I wanted to bring a forest preschool kindergarten experience to the school district in Huntington, Indiana, but it got derailed because of COVID. I'd also like to do more than a monthly preschool program at Salamone and possibly something with older homeschooled children. Excited about learning about mushroom hunting. Cool. That's a rich topic to be able to explore with kids as well. Great, thanks for the introductions. I know that sometimes in these conferences that introductions can feel like they take a really long time. And so if that's the case, I apologize, but I would encourage you to think about the people that are in this room as ones that have particularly matching interests as you, and so therefore resources for you as colleagues and as peers. So as you're kind of listening to these intros, think about who you might be wanting to reach out to afterwards using the Whova app to be able to say, hey, I was curious about, mushroom hunting or butterflies, like how have you incorporated that into your program? And so please do see this as a relationship building part of this hour as well. But that said, we want to move on to make sure that we're able to actually get to some of those specific needs that you are identifying. And so we're going to move to our second whip. And I'm going to go ahead and put this into the chat. There's kind of 2 different ways you can take this, which is basically the first one, what do you need help with tomorrow or next week, perhaps? And then the second is, what do you hope to get out of the conference for your program? So you can take that at kind of whatever level you are at. But to give us just a little bit of a time to kind of compose our thoughts, I'm going to just do about 30 to 45 seconds of thinking time so that you can identify which one or maybe two things you want to bring forward. And then we'll do a whip again in the same order. So you can get your text responses ready, but again, one or two sentences or questions that you have at the most responding to those two prompts. So we're going to start with just a real quick bit of thinking time, which we'll start now. Okay, let's go ahead and do our whip. And I said that we're going to go in the same order, so I suppose I'll have to start again. Sorry, I didn't mean to do that intentionally. Something that I'm thinking about is ideas for adding in activities to our outdoor nature preschool that also support some of the routine and ritual kinds of things that we have in place already. Next up, Carla.
For me, just kind of understanding what the current needs are and then how to support educators in those next steps, what people need.
Great, thank you. Annie, and then after that, Ellie.
I think new ideas and resources. I'm pretty strapped for time right now, being like the only person there. So just kind of seeing what's already out there would be really interesting for me.
Great, so kind of having a sense of what's going on already. Thanks, Annie. Ellie, and then after that, Heather.
I'd like a list, may not be written, but just people's ideas of local schools in the kind of Fort Wayne area, preschools who have nature-based programs that we could perhaps visit and maybe down the road form a little community of practice with to share ideas.
Great, thank you, Ellie. And by the way, Carla, are you able to take a few notes? Is that what you're jotting down?
Yeah.
Okay, great. We didn't coordinate that part. All right, thank you, Ellie. Let's go Heather and then to Heidi.
So I guess the thing that I'm looking for from our program is really educating parents on the value of it and what kids are gaining from it.
Great, thank you. And we'll move now on to Heidi and then Leslie after that. Heidi says, actually, Carla, would you mind reading out Heidi's?
Sure. Right now, we are not doing indoor programming. Usually in December, January, and February, I move indoors, or partial indoors, outdoors, and bring nature inside. I still haven't decided what these upcoming months will look like. And certainly with COVID, I would say it's part of that.
Yeah, thank you, Heidi. Leslie writes, I need help with ideas, lessons, and activities that people have tried and work. Could be as simple as songs or a lesson plan that carries over an entire season. What are people doing that works? So lesson plan ideas is kind of something that sounds like what you're going for there, Leslie. Michelle and then Teresa.
Yeah, I literally am just gathering ideas. So there's so many more programs that we could be doing at work, especially tying in just the benefits of being outdoors and our animal program with the other things that we're offering on the ground. So I'm just gathering ideas. So thank you.
Great, thank you, Michelle. And then Teresa writes, resources and new ideas and networking with others in the field. Great. And as you're listening to some of these, kind of be paying attention to what patterns we're hearing, because we're going to try to summarize that into some themes in just a little bit. Sounds like there's definitely some similarities. So that's, I think, good. Okay, next question before we kind of wrap up the whip format of response is thinking more broadly. So it can still be selfish, maybe still something that you find that your program needs, but what is it that our state needs to support programs, parents, educators etc., that are interested in this movement. And just a quick reminder and note, in the chat, I've got some different acronyms: nature-based early childhood education, or early childhood environmental education. There's many different names, but getting young kids out in the woods is kind of our umbrella term here. So again, let's do 30 to 45 seconds of thinking time, and then we'll do a whip responding to what does our state need to support programs, parents, educators, et cetera, in this movement and in this work. Okay, so for this whip, why don't we go in reverse order, and we'll go from, from back to front. So that would be Teresa, and then Michelle, and then on to Leslie, Heidi, Heather, Ellie, Annie, Carla, Marcos. So sorry if I'm putting you on the spot, those of you that would have been at the end. Teresa, you've been adding in through chat, so we'll come back to you as soon as you have a chance to do that. Michelle, what are you thinking about in terms of what our state needs?
Oh, there we go. Keep networking and just providing those programs that we can line up and keep offering. So.
Okay, great, thank you. And Teresa writes, accessible and ideally mandatory to break down practices and benefits so they are more prone to trying it out. Accessible workshops. Okay. Great, thank you, Teresa. Now I've lost my spot here. Okay, Leslie, and then on to Heidi. Leslie writes, the public school teachers and administration connected to naturalist and environmental educators, a partnership. Yeah, that could be a really powerful thing. So we might need to think about how we can do that. Heidi. Our state needs more actually, Carla, would you read that just so we have a change in voice in our group
state
here?
Needs more offerings and accessibility to offerings. My programs are free with park admission. I try to make them as accessible as possible, but getting the word out to the kids that would benefit the most from outdoor unstructured play can be hard. Programs that could be offered free of charge to schools would be amazing.
Great, thank you, Heidi. Heather, and then on to Ellie afterwards.
I guess I was thinking about a partnership too, like with local, like Mary Lee and schools, like a group of like-minded people that met and kept things on track so that it was moving forward.
Great, thank you, Heather. Ellie?
I wrote, does our state of Indiana have any research on the value of nature-based early childhood education, particularly across urban or rural settings, or both? And are there any funding opportunities for settings for beginning or developing this type of work?
Great, thank you. Annie?
I was thinking unified messaging across just like a media campaign to get everybody on board with environmental education. Like we kind of had that big push for STEM education, but getting everybody, like parents and teachers and the community, on board with environmental education, I think would be a good start.
Great, thank you, Annie. Carla?
Okay, so I kind of see that networking and that structure to connect, just a way to understand who people are and how to connect so that we can support each other in the movement.
Great, thank you. And I'll wrap us up. I think I'm seeing that there's a lot of new interest, and we're kind of at the beginning of the curve of trying to understand what this is all about. And it seems like there's a lot of folks that are asking similar questions around, what is the lesson plan idea bank that I go to? And how do I articulate what this is all about or understand the philosophy and then communicate that to stakeholders? And so I think some kind of a tool where we're not all reinventing the answers to those questions could be really useful and beneficial. Okay, great. Thanks everyone for participating in that structured feedback. Just to kind of give a little bit of metacognition on that, the idea is that when we do something like a whip, that gives everybody a chance to have thinking time and to respond so that it kind of lifts all the voices up and we can make sure to hear from everybody, whether it's through text or voice. Carla, do you want to take us ahead now in terms of kind of debriefing what we were hearing, maybe responding to some of those questions and moving ahead?
Yeah, and kind of piggybacking on what Marco said, just kind of some of those beginning steps. And also, I've heard like a unified message. So what exactly is this and what can we offer kind of as a state altogether? That networking, building partnerships, there's a lot that can be happening here. And perhaps it's just taking it one step at a time to kind of develop some things that go with this. So as we kind of think about these, how can a group like this support some of the things that we need? We kind of know like what the state may need, but how as a group might we be able to support this? Should we open that up to some open discussion, Marcos? Okay, do people have any ideas? I think one thing that I noticed, we've got the participant list and things like that. And so we can go ahead and start communicating with each other. But what are ways that you all see that we might be able to take these next steps in having networks and a unified voice for some of this? And maybe we want to go ahead and do the whip format again so that people have an option to share with that too. So give you a little bit of time, but what's something practical that as a group we could do to take those next steps for that? And we'll go backwards with that again too then. Teresa, do you have any thoughts? Okay, more time to think, sorry.
Yeah, you can always pass in a whip if you're thinking.
Michelle?
Yeah, I think some of the ICANN events and things where we've gathered together in the past, those always seem to be very helpful. Also, I wonder if there would be a place either on our EEAI website or somewhere that we could attach like program ideas, or I tried this and here's some pictures from it or something like that. I don't know.
Thank you. And then Leslie? Okay, she said, I know our current county schools get together for a big administration meeting at the beginning of the year. Can we get an invite to those types of meetings? Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Okay, Heidi? She said she's happy to share programming ideas of what she's done. Many of the things are posted free on their Facebook page since attendance is limited and not many can attend in person. So she usually does her programs. And then every week, but right now just 2 times a month. Yeah, people have been changing right now. Heather?
I guess the thing that I'm thinking about with this is like getting together and then setting some long-term goals, like I'm a list maker. So where do we see this type of programming in 3 years, 5 years, and then just break it down in steps that as small communities can achieve.
Thank you. And then Ellie?
I don't know. I mean, I'm partly coming to this conference to find out what's going on, and the online format is great in one aspect, but we learn so much when we actually see one another and talk to one another face to face. And so obviously that's not going to be an option for a while yet, but just coming to things like this, networking is really, really vital, but then getting the message out. But I don't know how we're currently doing that, how the association is currently doing that.
Yeah, I do have some resources to share, just kind of depending on time. I may put them in chat, but there is an Indiana Children Nature Network website, and then also a video about ICANN in general. It's made for this conference as a welcome to it. As far as me, I think it really seems like we need that place to connect online and perhaps in person as we can, depending on COVID and things of that sort, to just kind of network and work with that. Marcos?
Yeah, I guess I'm kind of in a similar boat of thinking of ways that we can just share what those of us who have tried some of these things have learned and kind of pass that along. And that, to me, it seems like that's at multiple levels, everything from, you know, understanding the benefits of risky play and then being able to turn around and talk about that to parents, for example, or the concrete things like, what outerwear have you tried and how did it hold up over 3 years? And, you know, like for example, last year we bought these mitten covers, they're waterproof mitten covers, and we put that on the students so that they could have any mitten or any gloves that they came to school with. But even if it's the like kind of measly little knit glove that doesn't really keep your hands very warm, that they could put those mitten covers on and then still play in the mud kitchen and get all wet or whatever, but their hands didn't get cold. So I feel like there needs to be something kind of at that broader level, but also at the, hey, here's something that cost, you know, I don't know, 10 or 15 bucks, and it just completely transformed the way that the kids were able to play in colder weather.
So there are a couple of initiatives that are already kind of in the works. Marcos has started with Mary Lee, kind of a regional network of nature-based early childhood educators up in the northern aspect of the state. So focused around where they are located in that surrounding area kind of thing. But we have people across the state. And then there is a Facebook group, not super active, but perhaps it's a place just to collect things. It's called I Can Learn Outdoors. And how many people use Facebook as a communication tool? Would that be a place where things could be shared? Just type in the chat, yes or no, I think would work well. And yeah, we need to know what mitten covers those are. So those are some of those things. I see some yeses. I haven't seen any no's yet. But even just with having a list of people, and then I would ask then who else should be here, you know, and we can support perhaps through email and such, but sometimes just Facebook is just an easy place where you can add whatever you want to for free and pretty easily. Anyone can contribute to it, kind of thing. And I like the idea of having something on the ICANN website. I did share a link to the ICANN Indiana Children Nature Network website. We would need to coordinate just with the state entity of EEAI to add more things to it, but we probably could. And then also the welcome YouTube video with that as well. And so I'm going to suggest that maybe we start identifying people. Who else is part of this movement that we need to know about and connect with? Can you think of 3 to 4 people that should be part of this conversation that maybe aren't here? I know I can. And then spaces. And so with that, we need kind of contact information and a place to connect. So do offer up that I Can Learn Outdoors Facebook group if we want to use that as one tool that can be used. And then let's see. And then perhaps it is followed up with a monthly email or something like that. And as organizer of the conference, I don't mind kind of following up. Part of one of the grants was that we would have kind of 3 follow-up sessions with the conference just to help implement this in more thing. And then, so those spaces to share. And then love to see like what kind of, what other people can offer. What can people bring to the table that they might be able to do it? Like, it sounds like Heather has some good organizational skills with her lists and moving things to the next level. Is there something that any of us could contribute to the next steps in this movement?
Carla, would it be okay if I highlighted a few resources just real quickly?
Please.
Great.
And I did also want to mention, it sounds like when it's safe to start visiting places too, we need to schedule a field trip to different spaces. So
that's a great idea. All right, so first of all, I misquoted you on the price, but these are the mitten covers that we used. They're from Polarn au Pirate. I don't know exactly how to say that, but they're basically one size fits most kids, and they're just a really nice waterproof material that would slip over a glove, whether it's, you know, a pretty simple one or a more kind of padded, warm, insulated glove. So I think these are listed as $23 on there. So actually it's a little bit more than I was thinking, but we decided to make the investment and then keep that as part of our program, as opposed to asking parents to invest in that. And then we can keep them year after year. And the way that we facilitated that was just to have them available. And we didn't necessarily like give them to every kid every day. It was dependent on the weather and what the activities were going on, but we would have them available so that if a kid wanted to, or if we saw that they were starting to get, you know, a little cold, that gave a little extra protection. The other thing, so there you go, there's a little like very specific piece.
And a note with that, they'll often give discounts if you're buying in
program
bulk
discounts
or programs, and there are some grants that people have been able to find too.
I'll post this link into the chat, but this is the network that Carla was mentioning. We've only had one. Our very first one was in October, and we'll be meeting again the Monday before Thanksgiving. I think it's the 23rd of November at 4 o'clock. And basically, we don't know exactly what this thing's going to look like, but if you want to jump in, there's a form here where you can fill out and you'll get email notifications that we're meeting. And it's basically something where we're trying to have a similar conversation to this, where we're saying, hey, what is the list of, in this case, for now, I could change, I suppose, what's the Northern Indiana list of programs that people could visit? Or what are the resources that people have been relying on or using to get started in their program? Or how can we kind of network and benefit from each other's work and share as resources? So.
And I did want to highlight that Teresa jumped in later. She said, more regular accountability where we can share goals and how we're doing with meeting them. So that's kind of how I would like to see things too, like a support group. So where we can check in and say, this is what we've been doing, this is what we've been working on, and we're having issues with this, what ideas do you have for this, and those kinds of things. So yeah, thanks. Yes, Ellie, go ahead and ask out loud.
My question, Carla and Marcos, is do you, because you're kind of leaders in this area and in the field, do you guys, have you done any research with different settings across the state? Do you ever do like action research projects with different schools and early childhood programs where they're identifying how they want to develop and you're supporting them? I just kind of think if we can get the evidence out there of the value of it, but that's fantastic. But also it means that we're collaborating and we're learning from one another, and teachers are very much identifying how they want to develop. And I mean, if there were those kind of research projects going on, I would love our school to be involved in that kind of thing, because I know there's so much value in it for us as practitioners, but for other people in finding out what other places are doing.
I like that idea, Ellie, and that action research. I don't know that there's been a coordinated effort with that, but perhaps that's something that we do with that. Teresa shared some good Facebook pages. Those are all ones that I use as well. And I know that I can go to those places and ask a question and get good content and responses like that from people that are involved in this more fully. But we don't really have anything like that except that's like Indiana based, Forest School for All to some degree. But the action research of here's some research on this, go implement it and come back and tell us what's happening. And it could be a more formal research project with that as well, Ellie. And so that could be an idea as well. So I think
one thing that I could kind of chime in on that is, you have to keep in mind that when you're talking to Carla, you're talking to an actual researcher. But when I'm speaking, it's more as like nonprofit administrator / educator / graduate student advisor. And so from that perspective, some of the graduate students at Mary Lee have done kinder forest or nature preschool oriented projects. That's more of kind of a year-long project inquiry type of a thing than a really fully fleshed out, peer-reviewed research project. But just to kind of give you a taste, when we did our kinder forest program with the Central Noble School District, one of our graduate students helped us to pull together like a pretty robust literature review and documented student experiences. And so I'd be glad to share that paper. It's a graduate student thesis paper, basically, so you can expect the length accordingly, et cetera. But I think just recently, Mary Lee has tried to be thoughtful about how to, I guess, respond exactly to what you're saying, Ellie. And so another link that I'm going to post in here is that we've recently started to pull together some online resources, and the example that I'm going to give here on this one, this is our resources page, is we just, well, I think Ellie, actually, you might have been in the first networking meeting, but this resource here is one that came out of partly some student research. And it's a paper that we pulled together that describes some of the kinder forest connections to academic standards. And so some of this is very anecdotal, right? Like this is where it's not really researcher, but we were saying that there's the continuum that Sobel was talking about earlier, but we're saying, look, when we do our sit spots, we're identifying connections to these various elements of the Indiana academic standards. And when we're doing activities, whether that's mud play or something else, here are ways in which we are linking and communicating to the teachers that we're working with and to the principals that the teachers are reporting to, and it kind of goes up and up all the way up to the superintendent, that these are the ways that we're connecting things all the way down to unstructured time where we don't have a lesson plan, but we see that the students that are out there and climbing on a log and slipping on it when it's a rainy day and not slipping on it when it's not a rainy day are identifying local weather conditions and comparing that over time, et cetera. And then the one page that I'll just highlight really quickly is that when you get down to this one, this is, I wouldn't call it like super rigorous in terms of it's not peer reviewed, et cetera, but it's the results of what one of the graduate students did in terms of trying to document connections to standards during some of these programs. So I'm hoping that we'll be able to continue to do that kind of within our institution. I'm guessing that as this type of program gets more traction, that you'll find that there are more institutions that are also interested in this locally. But I would say that my understanding is the research around something like a nature-based preschool or a forest kindergarten in the US is still novel enough, like the concept is novel enough that the research is just ramping up. And it's become more robust recently, but that's at the national level, not at the state level, in my experience.
Yes, I would say there's not a lot specific to the state level kind of thing. And Marcos has shared some great resources, and I've tried to put a bug in his ear that he needs to put it through the peer review process. And get it.
Yeah.
I have graduate students ask him about this research and when he's going to have it published. So, I don't know if they did. So as I'm kind of listening to things, this is kind of what I see, what I would kind of like to hopefully see us support each other in, and it's a mutual thing. But first of all, as as we finish up the conference, I wrote everyone's names down, but I'd like you to choose one action related to this movement that you feel like you can implement and take the next step on. And that may include some research, and we can help support in finding some resources or ideas or resources like the mittens that work for Marcos. So choose one action to implement, and I'll send out a link to that I Can Learn Outdoors group, and then also an email to the people that have been in this group. And then also I want you to think about, so go ahead and research it, and then go ahead and Taryn, I just saw your resource, Heidi. Taryn Hassler is going to do a session on books tomorrow, and she is actually the moderator for that book. I helped connect her with that position with Wilder Child. But so implement whatever it is, research a little bit and implement it. It could just be dipping your toes in it. And then we will meet again in January and try to have we'll probably do it virtual for now just because of everything that's happening. But be able to come back and tell us what you've learned and what challenges, what surprises, what experiences you had with that. And then also think of 3 to 4 people who can and should be involved in this. Who else? We will put this out to everyone that has attended the conference, but it doesn't have to just be people at the conference that can benefit from this. So if you know other people that are involved in this to some degree, please send them our way so that we can do that. Just connect more with people and things. Incentivize district superintendents. Okay, yeah. And Marcos, did you have anything else to add as far as next steps with action plans?
I'd be interested to hear what the action steps are that people are thinking of.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to summarize what you just kind of said as our plan for moving forward, Carla.
Yeah. And let's go ahead and share out on that. I think that it's still early in the conference, and you may find other things that you may want to implement. And I know that oftentimes I've done like a 3, 2, 1, like 3 things that were new to me, 2 aha moments, 1 thing that I really want to do. And the whole thing that I do with loose parts came from being at Conner Prairie, actually, at a Nature Explorer workshop, and deciding to implement a loose parts area at a nature center that I was working at. And that has morphed into a Facebook group that has over 80,000 people in it, and a book contract and all kinds of things, just because I chose to take action on one thing after a conference kind of thing. Of course, there was follow-up and things with that. But it may change by the end of the conference, but what's something that you're thinking on right now that you would like to implement more with your organization in your setting? We'll go ahead and use that same list, and let's see, I need to find the list again, the order. Okay, Teresa, would you like to share?
Teresa says pass in the chat.
Okay, yeah. And I didn't give people much wait time. We just have a few.
We could just do this one popcorn, Carla. Like,
oh yeah, okay, that sounds great.
Something that you're inspired to do as the next action step. So go ahead and unmute yourself or put into chat kind of as you're identifying what an action step could be for you.
For me, I can go ahead and model and share what I'm thinking, and I'm kind of looking at a bigger picture level, not just me personally, but I am going to follow up with everyone and share the group with them, share the resources that we have here, ask people what their action is that they're going to be doing, and then also encourage them to share 3 to 4 people, and then schedule that meeting for January to follow up with people. So for me, I'm looking at that bigger picture of helping support everyone in this. But I hope that yours is very different. And popcorning it off to someone else. And it doesn't have to be set in stone. It could just be what you're thinking right now.
Yeah, so I have written down all these ideas, and I'm excited to go back to work and share them and get some more programs going. There's so much more that we can do just with the resources that we already have. So this is good for inspiration for sure.
Thanks, Michelle.
I will probably check out these Facebook groups that you've given us links to, and your podcast, Carla. And I would really like maybe this is a yearly goal, but to have formed some kind of connection with another school that's on the similar track to us.
That's a great one, Ellie. And Leslie in chat says that she's still figuring out how to make a tennis ball roll activity connect to an ecosystem conversation for my next homeschool forest school. So if you have any ideas, chat with Leslie. And her other action is to contact the principal of her son's school.
Okay, these are great. I'm excited to hear about them. And that can be really powerful, what you said, Ellie, too, about having someone else in the journey around the same step that you go through with that. And so hopefully through some of this networking, we can find some things too. And Teresa asked about online communities, the podcasts, and how about the water cycle? Okay, so she's sharing a little bit.
Leslie, you're getting your tennis ball connections there. Good thing you asked. I think for me, I've been trying to get a pulse of kind of where people are at in our region, across the state. And for example, Ellie, you and I have chatted about trainings. And it sure seems to me like there's a lot of interest in Indiana specific programs and like examples of how those are looking. And so I'm feeling inspired to look carefully at how Mary Lee can offer some trainings in the next year to help support teachers that are kind of early on in the process or trying to figure out concrete steps of moving forward and getting their students outside.
And I will say that Mary Lee hosted some trainings this summer that were excellent. And they, of course, with COVID, everything was virtual and things, but they did highlight at least 3 different schools in their area. And I don't know if you would consider doing that again, or those could be available to people to kind of see what those different programs look like. But those videos were, even though we couldn't be there in person, it gave us a much more personal feel of what those situations were like. So
I'd put that in part of my action step, Carla. Yeah, I got to figure that out.
So yeah, well, thank you all for this time today. So I will follow up with an email to everyone specifically, but then also the whole group from the conference in case other people would like to be involved in it, because I know we have a lot of other people interested in early childhood education. But then also, please start thinking about who else needs to be at the table with this, who can we include in it, and just start having just maybe a structure or framework or support so that we can connect with each other and network and be able to move to the next steps of each of our individual action plans and have a place to share out on those and continue the conversations with it. So thank you. Marcos, anything else you're thinking about?
Not necessarily. It's just another example of, you know, a few different formats and groups of people that I'm really inspired to know that there's folks that are thinking about this and are interested in talking about it across the state. And my parting words for those of you that are kind of like, I don't know exactly how to do this, is to try something out. It doesn't have to be like, you know, this fully fleshed out program that's adhering to all the ideals. You get experience by trying things out and figuring out what worked and what didn't. And baby steps can be really empowering if you just take that first step. So go for it. And hopefully you're really feeling inspired by the conference and by not only at like the big levels, but also at these individual people level. Like what did you hear some of these folks actually doing, and reach out to them. And yeah, best of luck.
Yeah, I am sharing, I put a link in earlier about this, but Indiana Children and Nature Network.org kind of thing. But this is just some of the things that they are working on as an organization as part of EEAI. You know, it's got some information about the issue that's there. You're not getting outside, some good news. And this isn't necessarily school specific, but just in general, they've got nature play days. I almost always include that in programming that I do somehow. And then they've got brown bag lunches where they've been going. They've got training for nature clubs, if that's something that may be of interest. They've got some, let's see, some take the pledge play ideas. And this is something that they've worked a little bit on with different play areas, that natural play areas within the area. And so they've shared some things with this. And let's see. So there are some resources there. So places around Indianapolis and some of those kinds of things where you may go visit some places. I know that I've documented a lot of places on Facebook and my blog and such as well. So there are some resources here, and then there is an early childhood section as well. So it's just some of those quick steps, resources, kinds of things, but we potentially can do more with this. So just some ideas to think about. And they do have a call out to identify existing natural playgrounds. And so there are some examples down here at the bottom of the resource page there that you might, I just love going and visiting all the different places and seeing what they're like and seeing them in action if I can. So thank you all very much. And we do have the session with Rachel Larimore later this afternoon. That is a longer session. Feel free to take breaks, but it is all early childhood based and the logistics of it all. So that inspiration of your next step may come from that session or whatever it may be. And I look forward to connecting with you all some more. And thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks, everybody. Bye. Have a great morning.
Thanks. Bye. Hey, Matt, can you help me figure out where I am in Zoom to stop this? I feel silly. The like I shared my screen, but I can't figure out where my controls are, like to mute or stop the recording or any of those kinds of things. Yeah, I'm not finding it though. Oh, I found it. Sorry. I'm sorry. I couldn't figure it out.